ready for prime time. As the Democratic National Convention enters its third day, we take a closer look at vice presidential pick Kamala Harris, including her history with Catholics and record on pro-life issues. Response from Washington, what President Donald Trump is saying about the DNC. And focus on the less fortunate. Pope Francis delivers a message on a possible coronavirus vaccine. On EWTN News Nightly for Wednesday, August 19th, 2020.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Tracy Sable reporting from the White House as we continue our Democratic National Convention coverage. We begin tonight as Democrats make it official. Former Vice President Joe Biden receives the formal nomination as the party's presidential candidate. Amid the coronavirus pandemic, the virtual roll call of convention delegates played out in a combination of live and recorded video feeds. Joe Biden will deliver his acceptance speech tomorrow on the convention's fourth and final night. Philip Crowther, international affiliate reporter for the Associated Press, joins us now with a look at last night's convention highlights and a preview of tonight's events. Philip, welcome back. Good to see you. Joe Biden's nomination last night realizes a pursuit 30 years in the making for him, and also a comeback that just a few months ago many did not think was possible.
Yeah, it's been quite the journey for the former vice president. You might have seen those pictures just after the roll call yesterday. Seemed like a look of surprise on Joe Biden's face, almost, that he had finally clinched that nomination. He might have been thinking back to those normal days, to the South Carolina primary at the end of February and Super Tuesday at the beginning of March, when he finally made his way toward the nomination. Remember that Bernie Sanders, the senator from Vermont, was the favorite beforehand. Now, Joe Biden is somebody who's been looking at eyeing the presidency for over 30 years. Now, at the age of 77, he is finally the nominee of his party. Of course, he couldn't have imagined that this historic moment for him would have looked the way it did during a coronavirus pandemic, and him accepting the nomination on Thursday night here in Wilmington with no audience, finding out about it last night again with just his family present. These are extraordinary times, and it is an extraordinary convention as well.
Well, Philip, as you know, last night's theme was Leadership Matters. We had a chance to hear from former Presidents Jimmy Carter and Bill Clinton. What did President Clinton have to say about the differences between a Joe Biden presidency and that of President Trump?
Really interesting role that the former president played yesterday. This is now the 11th convention at which he has spoken on stage, or yesterday, of course, via video. Bill Clinton, in his message, compared how Joe Biden would run the presidency as compared to Donald Trump, saying that Donald Trump turned the Oval Office into a storm center rather than a command center during the coronavirus pandemic. The message from Bill Clinton being quite clearly that Donald Trump is not fit for office. Now, interestingly enough, though, Bill Clinton has only spoken the first hour of the 2 hours of the second night of the Democratic Convention, meaning that he's gone down in importance a little bit within the party. When you look at that second hour, the keynote was from Jill Biden, Dr. Jill Biden, the wife of Joe Biden, who gave the most important speech of them all from an empty classroom here in Wilmington. Her message was essentially this one, that Joe Biden would take care of the American people during the coronavirus outbreak, as he has taken care of his family during different difficult times. Now, speaking of Jill Biden, she did the circuit of the network interviews this morning here in Wilmington, and she again had to field those questions repeatedly, whether her husband was fit for office. She says emphatically that yes, he is.
Democrats also spent time talking about Biden's decency and character as well. Speaking of Joe Biden's wife, Dr. Jill Biden, last night she gave a speech. How did she drive that point home?
Well, it was a very interesting setting for her in that empty classroom of a school where she once taught, a symbol of the coronavirus outbreak. Of course, that empty classroom where there should have been students, of course, where she once taught English. So it was really a portrait that she was trying to paint of Joe Biden as you said, that decent family man who's gone through all sorts of tragedy in his life, the relatively recent loss of his son. There beforehand, decades ago already, the loss of his wife and his daughter in a car accident, a tragic life, but she painted the portrait of somebody who she believes the American people can trust. She did not necessarily go after Donald Trump as other keynote speakers have. In that sense, her speech yesterday was different from others that we've heard during this convention.
Well, Philip, we don't have much time, but we are expected to hear from Hillary Clinton tonight, the former 2016 presidential candidate. We're also going to hear from Kamala Harris, who accepts the nomination for vice president tonight. Two women who, in their own right, have made history within the Democratic Party. Do we have a sense yet of what they're expected to say?
Well, Kamala Harris will be making history right here in the building you see behind me here in Wilmington. She will be accepting the nomination of her party, but without an audience, without any applause, with just a few campaign staffers and probably her husband in attendance. One thing I'd look out for is whether she will talk about race issues. Of course, she's going to make history as the first black female vice president potentially of the United States. Of course, the first black female nominee of a major party as well. You might remember that in the second Democratic debate of this primary season, she attacked Joe Biden on race issues, didn't call him a racist, but went after him still. She might well want to mention that. You also mentioned Hillary Clinton. Now, she has a speaking role here, but she is unlikely to talk about her run much against Donald Trump. She is the only person within the Democratic Party who knows what it's like to run against Donald Trump in a presidential race. She's expected to focus much more on the role of women in politics, and most notably women within the Democratic Party taking positions of power over the last few months and years.
Philip Crowther, international affiliate reporter for the Associated Press, thank you as always. Well, Senator Kamala Harris is the first black woman and the first American of South Asian descent on a major party's presidential ticket. And before she addresses the convention tonight, correspondent Mark Irons takes a look back at how she made it there. Mark?
Tracy, in the race for the White House, Joe Biden hopes his running mate, Senator Kamala Harris, will help him capture those needed votes for victory. Biden calls Harris a proven fighter.
Kamala knows how to govern. She knows how to make the hard calls. She's ready to do this job on day one.
Senator Kamala Harris has already made history as Joe Biden's pick for vice president. But her story begins in Oakland, California. She was born the daughter of Jamaican and Indian immigrants. Her parents divorced when she was a child. Harris credits her mother with influencing her life, calling her the reason for everything. The senator has said she was inspired to attend law school after joining civil rights protests with her parents.
I feel a sense of responsibility to stand up and fight for the best of who we are. And I'm prepared to fight, and I know how to fight.
After graduating from Howard University and the University of California Hastings College of Law, Harris would eventually become California's Attorney General. During Democratic primary debates, her work as a former prosecutor came under fire.
She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so.
Senator Harris stood by her record.
I did the work of significantly reforming the criminal justice system of a state of 40 million people.
As a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee,
can 5 Supreme Court justices overturn any precedent?
Harris was cast in the national spotlight as she questioned Brett Kavanaugh before he was confirmed to the Supreme Court. Before that, in 2017, when she was sworn in as a U.S. Senator,
Without any mental reservation,
it was then Vice President Joe Biden who administered the oath of office.
Tracy, Senator Harris has an interfaith background. She grew up attending services at both a Black Baptist church and a Hindu temple. She now identifies as Baptist. Tracy.
Correspondent Mark Irons reporting for us tonight. Thank you so much, Mark. And we continue now looking at Senator Harris and her time as California's Attorney General and now Senator, including her questioning of President Trump's judicial nominees over their membership in the Knights of Columbus. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales reports. Eric?
Well, Tracy, it's important to note that in the Senate, Kamala Harris has twice sponsored the Do Not Harm Act, which essentially prevents religious freedom protections from harming third parties. Critics say that all it does is prevent people from practicing their faith in public. And they also say that it's another example of Harris going after religious freedoms.
Senator Harris has been crystal clear what she believes.
Katie Glenn of Americans United for Life says Senator Kamala Harris has a record of grilling Catholic judges nominated to sit on federal courts and who also belong to the Knights of Columbus.
Saying that being a member of the Knights was a bridge too far, that any member of the Knights is not eligible for the federal bench, which suggests any Catholic is not eligible for the federal bench.
In 2018, Senator Kamala Harris quizzed Catholic judicial nominees Brian Bisher and Peter Phipps in written questionnaires. To Peter Phipps, she wrote, "The Knights of Columbus state that they defend the right to life of every human being from the moment of conception to natural death. If confirmed to the bench, will you defend the right to life of every human being from the moment of conception to natural death?" Phipps wrote in reply, quote, "If confirmed to the bench, I will follow the law."
Do you know what the point of the questions for the record about your membership in the Knights of Columbus was?
No, Senator, I do not.
What's happening in this committee is absolutely nuts, that we're asking people questions about why they're members in the largest Catholic fraternal organization in America.
In 2016, as Attorney General of California, she authored the search of the home of pro-life activist David Daleiden for undercover videos exposing Planned Parenthood officials discussing alleged sale of baby body parts, but did not investigate the practices the video showed. Some Catholics say it indicates Kamala Harris lacks tolerance for those who practice their faith.
Senator Harris has previously stated she doesn't necessarily think Catholics are eligible for federal service, and yet she is potentially going to serve as vice president under the second Catholic president were Joe Biden to be elected.
Now, critics say because Joe Biden has flip-flopped so many times over the years that Joe Biden is here, especially with preserving of life, where Harris is actually here in a strong pro-abortion stance, and they are concerned that she could have a major influence on the Biden ticket. Tracy?
Okay, thank you so much, Eric. Correspondent Eric Rosales reporting from Capitol Hill. Joining me now on Skype is Christopher Bedford, senior editor for The Federalist. Chris, welcome back to the show. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Kamala Harris's selection as the Democratic Party's nominee is one that has been criticized by Catholic leaders. What do you think? What are your thoughts on her selection?
Kamala Harris isn't just one of the mainstream left-wing senators that we've seen before who've pushed for abortion rights, or pushed for this or that. She has voted twice, actually, to have taxpayer-funded abortion in the last trimester. She has voted against acts to save babies that are born alive. But what goes beyond just that is she's been a very, very vocal critic of the Catholic Church. I don't think it's hyperbolic to say she's the most anti-Catholic vice presidential candidate in modern history. She's attacked the Little Sisters of the Poor. She's called the Knights of Columbus an extremist organization when any Catholic will say they're not extremists. They're pretty mainstream in their Catholic views. She shut down a Catholic hospital, or was instrumental in shutting down a group of Catholic hospitals in California. She's been a vocal critic of the religion, and I think that will continue if she's vice president. And as we know, given Joe Biden and how much he's looking up to her, in a higher and more authoritative role as vice president than we've seen.
Yeah, and as mentioned, there's questions have been raised about her pro-abortion stance, as you know, as well as her position on questions of religious liberty. In addition, the policy concerns that would raise if Joe Biden were elected. What type of impact do you think that's going to have on a Biden candidacy?
I think that Kamala Harris is going to have a very outsized impact on the vice presidency. Biden's made it clear himself that she'll have an outsized impact on his presidency. He knows he's getting on in age, might not even run a second term, and a lot of the people who are voting for him understand very much that Joe Biden is getting on in age, and that a vote for the vice president is actually going to matter this time because she will potentially be the president, maybe in the first term, hopefully not, but certainly lead up to be his successor and will have a huge impact on his policies and on his ticket.
Well, tonight we're going to hear from Senator Harris herself as she gives her acceptance speech as the Democratic Party's VP nominee. What will you be watching for?
I'll be watching for tonight to be a shift in the entire DNC's message, with the first night having been outreach to conservatives and disaffected Republicans. The second night focusing on Joe Biden's character and the tragedies he's gone through. Tonight, we've got some of the hard punchers. Kamala Harris is known for being a hard puncher. Barack Obama is going to be there. Senator Warren, Hillary Clinton. I think tonight we're going to look a little bit more like a pep rally. But so far we have seen, and we're seeing a Catholic benediction planned for tonight, we have seen a more unite the party kind of thing where they're trying to reach out to voters. I would say to Catholics, don't be fooled. Kamala Harris has a long, lifelong record of being one of the most anti-Catholic politicians in America.
Okay, Chris, we have 30 seconds left. Any final thoughts?
Watch tonight. I think if you can struggle through it, and if not, tune into EWTN and the Federalist to see it. We'll watch it for you.
Okay, thanks so much, Chris. Christopher Bedford, senior editor for the Federalist. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, the Trump administration isn't letting the DNC steal the limelight this week. While it goes on, the president is holding public appearances around the country. Vice President Mike Pence was in the battleground state of Wisconsin today at an event called Joe Biden's Failure to Put American Workers First. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports.
Tracy, earlier this week, President Trump was in the Badger State, and today it was Vice President Mike Pence's turn to rally supporters in Wisconsin, and he brought this message to workers there.
It's been 3.5 years of promises made and promises kept, and it's been 3.5 years of jobs, jobs, jobs.
Meanwhile, President Donald Trump's campaign releasing this spot on his casting a ballot in the Florida primary.
So I'm signing today an absentee ballot. Absentee ballots are not universal mail-ins. These are really good. You have to work to get them, and you have to make sure everything's perfect, and you send them in, and very little can go wrong.
And as Postal Service leaders are called in to testify in the coming days over concerns about slow mail delivery and the upcoming November elections, the president tweeted today, "Why are Republicans allowing the Democrats to have ridiculous post office hearings on Saturday and Monday, just before and during our convention? Let them hold them now, during their convention, or after our convention is over." Always playing right into their hands. And with scenes like this in Portland playing out, the president also tweeted in all caps, "If you can protest in person, you can vote in person." Also today, White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany went before reporters in the briefing room.
So where is Nancy Pelosi? She and her Democrat colleagues will be back in Washington soon to pursue their latest manufactured crisis, the Postal Service.
President Trump heads to Pennsylvania tomorrow, another important swing state come November 3rd. And then next week, the Republicans hold their convention. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
Coming up, the head of the Archdiocese of Washington, D.C. announces plans for a special mass later this month.
Welcome back from the White House. A federal judge has halted the Trump administration's rule protecting doctors from performing an abortion or transgender surgery. The proposal was set to take effect this week. The judge blocked it until the measure receives a full court decision. A Catholic priest in Ohio has been arrested on a charge of sex trafficking. The Diocese of Toledo has placed Father Michael Zacharias on leave pending an investigation. The FBI alleges the 53-year-old engaged in sexual contact with minors since the late 1990s. The Archbishop of Washington, D.C. is celebrating a Mass of Peace and Justice on next week's anniversary of the 1963 March on Washington. Archbishop Wilton Gregory is planning the Mass for Friday, August 28th. It will commemorate the famous address by Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. And you can read more about the plans for next week at our sister publication, CatholicNewsAgency.com.
Up next, an annual Catholic festival in Italy is taking place despite the coronavirus. We'll explain. And Pope Francis reminds the faithful of an important part of being a follower of Christ.
The historic diplomatic breakthrough between Israel and the UAE came after a decade of secret talks and negotiations intensified over the last year and a half. Meanwhile, Palestinians are not pleased with the peace deal. Hundreds in Gaza rallied today to denounce the normalization of ties with the UAE. They burned an Israeli flag and trampled on posters of President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. It was organized by Hamas, which controls the Gaza Strip.
Dès ma première mission de chef du gouvernement de ce pays.
The president of Mali announced his resignation late last night. The army in the West African country staged a coup and arrested both the president and the prime minister. The takeover is being condemned by the United Nations and France, which has colonial ties with the region. Pope Francis reminds the faithful that caring for the poor is a key part of being a Christian.
Oggi abbiamo un'occasione per costruire qualcosa di diverso.
At his weekly talk at the Vatican, the Holy Father also discussed the possible vaccine for the coronavirus. He asked that any medical breakthrough be made available to people in all countries, especially the most vulnerable. Pope Francis calls on participants of a week-long Catholic festival to be witnesses of the beauty of God in our world. The Holy Father delivered the message to attendees of the Meeting for Friendship Among Peoples, also known as the Remini Meeting. It has taken place every August since 1980, but this year the event is completely online due to the coronavirus pandemic. Earlier today, I spoke with a volunteer for Remini 2020.
Arancha Messina, a volunteer for Rimini 2020, joins us now from Rome. Welcome. So first off, can you tell us what the Rimini meeting is about?
Of course I can. So the Rimini meeting is an international gathering where you can find people from all around the world, from the 5 continents, gathering here, dealing with topics such as religion, culture, science, and politics. So it's such an amazing experience for all the people to gather here in Rimini.
So what will be different this year about it?
So this year, many things are different. To start with, everything is going to be online, okay? So some meetings are here, but you will have the opportunity anywhere, anytime to connect from your home and experience the wondering you can get out of the exhibitions, shows, and meeting and conferences here in Rimini.
Can you talk about the ways that the meeting inspires people to proclaim the gospel?
Yes, so I think that in a sense, in this meeting, we are finding different ways, different languages to reach everybody anywhere, as I said before, using technology, social media. For example, this year we have many webinars thanks to which people can engage in dialogues dealing with all the topics we have here in Rimini. So in a sense, we're trying to reach everybody anywhere in the world using the means we have at our disposal nowadays.
And I'm wondering how many people are participating this year, and also curious why you volunteer at the meeting.
I personally volunteer the meeting because for me it's always an experience to meet people from different backgrounds who gather here to talk about one single topic. So this is a beautiful opportunity, a unique opportunity to talk with different people. And many people come from the 5 different continents. But this year we have 100 hubs all around the world because, of course, because of the virus, not everybody can come here. So many volunteers are trying to create hubs in all the 5 continents so that the meeting is reachable anywhere as well.
Arancha, is the meeting just for Catholics or can people of other faiths attend?
Not at all. It's not only for Catholics. As I was saying before, it's an opportunity to gather both a Catholic and somebody who has a different religion, but the unique opportunity to talk about a single topic, having a different perspective, is something you will find here. I think maybe you won't find something like this in another parts of the world. So, for example, we have politicians from different backgrounds, different points of view, or even religious people gathering here and having interesting discussion about the topics we're dealing with this year at the meeting.
Arancha, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, too. It was a pleasure.
And we thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable reporting from the White House. Good night and God bless.